Hi, and welcome to the Crit Hit Wild podcast, where we cover all things Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we cover a new character every week. This week we're doing Cassandra Nova, and I'm your host, Fred.
And I'm Brad, and
And
I'm
that's it,
Brand, and
everybody.
I'm Brandon, and
Oh,
and I'm Steven.
I guess Brad is now everybody. We are understaffed here today. Uh, Due to some scheduling conflicts, it's just gonna be myself and Brad today. There's a slight possibility that we might be joined by Brandon later on, but we'll just power forward. Uh, how are you doing today, Brad?
I'm doing pretty good.
It makes for I'm doing pretty good. I shouldn't complain. It's been a long couple months, but the company that I work for seems to be moving on hiring some new people. So maybe I will have less work to do, which would be nice.
Uh, I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah. I'm not holding out hope. We've hired people in the past and they fell through when they needed to take drug tests.
Mm,
This, yeah, this is West Virginia. Oh well. Uh, I don't think we have a whole lot to talk about today. There's very little news when it comes to Marvel Crisis Protocol. I think that right now they're on a get Shatterpoint mobilized stance as a company. And at the moment Marvel Crisis Protocol is kind of taking a little bit of a backseat, which is fine. They want to get their new game built up and with a fan base, which I completely understand. Speaking of which, did you get to play any games recently?
I played Shatterpoint yesterday.
Yeah, tell me about the game. Tell me about the game you played.
Um, I lost.
Ooh, oh, a first. Someone
Well,
has
I
beaten
figured it
Brad.
out. It's not me, Fred. I'll tell you what the key is here in a second. So
Okay.
I played uh, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Rex, Cody, and a bunch of clones.
Okay.
Because
And you weren't playing Mandalorians?
they were all painted. And Brandon was my opponent, and he played Dooku, Kalani B1s, and then his other was Maul, Django, and Super Commandos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because he didn't have Magna Guards put together yet.
Okay.
And Brandon won because he had Mandalorians and I didn't.
Yeah, that's the
That's what it
thing.
was.
You didn't bring Mandalorians and he did.
Yep. Mandalorians so far in every game I've seen played, Mandalorians have been on the winning side.
Now, there are Mandalorians on both sides of the starting box.
Yes, there are.
But it does seem like they are pretty darn good. They
Uh,
seem to be a
his
pretty effective.
his Mandalorians didn't do much, but they were there and they won him the game.
That's all that matters is that they were there. It sounds like that's he must have bought a couple more models than what comes in the core set.
He bought one additional box,
Yeah,
the Dooku box.
right. I'm he's ahead of me and he has built models which makes him ahead of me. Yeah, Brandon and I both went in on one starter box. Everyone out there in podcast land. And Brandon is already built models and has played games with those models, and I have done neither. So that's not true. I have one built Mandalorian. I
You
have one
do
built
because I
Mandalorian.
accidentally built him for you.
Yes, because Brad accidentally built him. That's what
Brennan,
it's like That is what it's like being friends with Brad, is that sometimes your stuff just accidentally gets done.
Brandon and I were putting models together, and I told him I'd only help if I got to pick which models I put together. And so I was like, you have to put together your B1s, and I'll put together your Mandalorians and Django. And I was finished building the Mando, and then I noticed he had an antenna, and I was like, oh, this is not the right Mandalorian.
Well, I appreciate it. I really want to play Shatterpoint. It was fun, the game that I've played of it. I just haven't been able to get down there on a game day, largely because of work. So
Well, hopefully
I
you'll get down soon.
yeah, that's for the future. But all right, let's move on. Is there any other stuff that we need to cover? I don't I don't know if there is. You don't have any app updates, correct?
I do not.
Right. So uh that and we don't know. I guess there is. Oh, you know what? There is a tournament coming up on Saturday. That is Saturday the 1st of July, right? Wait, is that correct? No, it happened last week, didn't it?
Oh, are you talking about the one in Pittsburgh?
In the Fabricator's Forge.
Yeah, it had already happened.
Well, you know what? Never mind, everybody. That was last Saturday, so you missed it. But oh man, do you know if Steven went?
I think
I
he
don't.
had planned to.
He had planned to, but I haven't been able to speak to Steven since that day. So, I when the next week when Steven is on, assuming that he'll be on, we'll have an update on how that tournament went if he went. Oh boy, everyone, I'm all frazzled. My weeks are running together. Uh, I think I think that we should just move on to the person that we are covering today, and that is Cassandra Nova. Her name is Cassandra Nova. She has 7 stamina on her front side and 6 stamina on her back side. She's movement speed medium, size 2. She is threat 5. Oof. Her defensive stats are 2 physical, 3 energy, and 4 mystic. And I'll go through her attack suites. Uh, Her first attack is a regular builder. It is called Psionic Bolt. It is range 4 and it throws 5 dice. And it has access to Wild Sap Power, which is the one where it takes a power from the person who is attacked and gives it to her. Her second attack is called Mind Possession. It is range 3, it throws 6 dice, and it costs 1 power. And after this attack is resolved, you may advance the target character its speed. That's the that's okay. I won't talk anymore. Uh, the next attack is another spender. It's called Flesh Manipulation. It is a physical attack instead of a mystic. I don't think I said it, but the previous 2 attacks were mystic attacks. This physical attack, Flesh Manipulation, is range 2. It throws 8 dice and it costs 4 power. And it comes with the special ability, which is Wild Explosive Force. After this attack is resolved, other characters within range 2 of this character are pushed away from this character short. Pushed characters suffer 1 damage. Why don't you take the rest of the card there, Brad?
Okay. She has an active superpower called Biokinesis. It costs 3. And choose an enemy character within range 3. It gains root and slow special conditions. A reactive superpower called Psychic Distraction that costs 2. When an enemy character ends a movement within 3 of this character may use the superpower, roll 4 dice. The enemy character suffers 1 damage for each crit and wild rolled. The superpower does at least 1 damage. This character may advance short. And then Telekinetic Deflection is a reactive superpower that costs 2. And if this character would suffer collision, it may use a superpower. This character does not suffer damage from this collision. An innate telepathic cloak. It's stealth. You have to be within 3 to target the character with attacks. And she has flight and healing factor 1.
Yeah, so she has a lot of powers. There's a lot going on here. And some of it's good and some of it is I mean, I think it's probably all good. The only thing is that it has to be factored into the threat 5 and whether or not she's worth that. Uh, I think the first thing we should talk about is that she is included in the Sentinel affiliation. Uh, and is that what affiliations is she? Is it that
She's
and
also
Cabal? Is that
Cabal.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just Sentinels and Cabal, and she's got some interest. I really like that she has Brace for Impact on her card.
That is good.
It is that can really I have played against her and that saved her life once. I actually think that was against you.
It, in fact, won that game for me.
Yeah, it did. uh a lot of people say some bad stuff about Sentinels, and they're not exactly in a great place meta-wise, but they are a lot to wade through hit points-wise. And when you are throwing a Sentinel at Cassandra Nova expecting her to get taken out, and she braces it, that hurts. That
Yep.
hurts. So what are your thoughts here on her?
Uh, Mind possession is very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's probably the best thing on her card.
Yep. And I also like psychic distraction, but that's mostly because I like abilities like this.
Yeah, it's a rake. It's something that's on
Yeah.
the field that they have to worry about.
I
Yeah, the
also I also like that you can trigger it with mind possession, but
yes, you can. That would be yeah, you can. That's very cool. I did not think about that.
yeah.
Yeah, mind possession is the real butter of this card. That's why she's worth 5 threat and why sometimes that she's the correct choice.
Rarely. Biokinesis
Yeah.
is also really good. Root and slow are great, but you can just take pyro.
Right. Right. Like Pyro has access to that.
Yeah. I think it's
And it's
exactly
cost
the same
3.
ability.
Yeah. Firewall, I think it's called.
Yeah, that
Something
sounds
like
right.
that. But I I gotta say, I'm not super up on her. I feel like she just doesn't do quite enough to be worth 5 threat to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Before we move on to a letter grade, let's talk about the tactics that are associated with Cassandra Nova. Uh, so the first one, if I can get it to load up, is oh my goodness. I'm having technical difficulties on
It's
my end.
efficient machines.
There you go. Thank you.
This is a Sentinel card. It's reactive. During the power phase, Cassandra Nova may spend 3 to play this card. Until the end of the round, allied Sentinels characters within range 3 of Cassandra Nova treat block results as wild results.
Which is pretty nice. It is possible to turn on what there's a combination of things when you use oh god, what's his name? Corvus
Corvus
Glaive.
Glaive, yeah.
Yeah, you can use Corvus Glaive and there's another card that turns him into a sentinel. I
Yes.
believe it's Under
Yeah.
the Skin is what it's
Uh
called.
huh.
And you can make it so that literally every die face is a success using that card.
While only one skull is a success, everything after that's still a failure, but it's still pretty good. Everything but 2 or more skulls is a success.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, you have to do a lot of business, and he does. Does he work very well with Sentinels,
No,
just in
not
general?
particularly.
Right. So it's a lot of business to walk through, and you have to bring at least two cards to make it happen,
It's
and
bring two cards.
a power and a gem.
Yes,
Uh, but
a
you
restricted
can make it
gem.
so your dice are 100% effective, or almost 100% effective.
Yeah.
I think that's the only combination of that exists in this game.
Yeah, you can't get skulls on anyone else. There are others that count blanks.
Right. But that's now that we're not talking about that corner case, do you think that this card is particularly useful?
I think if you are playing her in your list and you have sentinels, like more than just the leader. I know people are real down on playing the regular Mark IVs. If you're playing the regular Mark IVs and you're playing her, then yeah, I mean that's a lot of extra hits. I mean it'll depend on what else you are taking in your tactics. I don't think
Right.
it's a bad choice.
Okay. Okay. Uh, the other card that is associated with her is one that's called Mental Domination, and we've actually talked about this card already on the podcast because this is one that she shares with Jean Grey. And to go over it again real quick, it is range 2 and it only throws 2 dice. It gives access to an attack called Mental Domination. And Cassandra Nova may spend 3 power to play the card, and then choose an enemy character within range 3, advance the character short, and then target the attack from that character that you moved, which is an interesting way to do things so that you can actually reach out and touch someone. And then you get to add dice to the attack based on the physical defense of the chosen character. So
Uh,
I think that this is probably more
there's one more
useful.
line on there, Fred. It's really
Oh,
important.
you may reroll any number of your opposing defense dice in the defense roll, which is, yes, it's very important. That makes it a lot better.
Yeah, it
But
does.
uh, I think that I'm it's useful and it's probably pretty good on Cassandra Nova. It adds a level of control element to that attack, and it's a pretty solid attack. Like imagine if you're using it on Carnage, who I think has the highest physical defense stat in the game. So that's 7 dice you're throwing, and your opponent has to reroll all the successes in their defense roll when you make it.
Yep.
It's pretty good. That's pretty good. Uh, Again, it the question is it worth taking? If you have Cassandra Nova in your list, it's probably worth taking. You're probably
Yeah.
going to take this card.
At least in your 10. Um, People are willing to pay 3 power and attack this card just to displace someone. This is a displacement and an attack. And it's an
Right.
extra attack. It doesn't take an action.
Okay. That okay, good. Other than the tactics cards, is there anything else that we need to talk about before we grade Cassandra Nova? I think the one thing that I want to bring up is that I feel like she's power starved pretty regularly. Is
Yes.
that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she has no way of generating. I guess she has sap power, which technically she can use to generate a little bit more power. But otherwise, she is using power all the time. All of her abilities take power, and she just doesn't have a way to generate it.
Nope. If she gained extra power each turn, she'd be a lot better.
Like if she had the Asgardian, not she's not an Asgardian, but if she had
Yeah.
that particular rule set,
2 extra power would be even better. but
I mean, not everyone gets to be Hulk.
wow, you're right.
Well, all right. I think that we're ready to grade Cassandra Nova. I think I'll start. I'm gonna give her a pretty poor C, just a C.
I'll see. I was also gonna give her a C, so
Yeah, yeah.
sounds like we're right on track here.
We're right. Yeah, we'll have to ask Brandon and Steven what their takes are on her. I think that I
I feel like this is one where Brandon would have been higher than us.
that's very possible. That's very possible. I'm not saying she's bad because she's not. She's got that mind possession attack, which is really good. Like it's a mystic attack that's only costs one, and you can advance the target character at speed in any direction. That's the extent of the wording on that attack. The problem is that in order to use it, you have to be within range 3 of a person that your opponent doesn't want you to move. So either
Yeah.
you have to be forward with Cassandra Nova, or your opponent has to have someone forward that you're trying to move around. Uh, is she squishy? I think
Yes.
she's a little. Yeah, she's got only 2 physical defense too.
Her
Yeah,
her greatest defense is to stay away from everyone else. And
right.
you can't
Use
always
her
do that.
stealth. Her not stealth.
It's better than stealth because it's not called stealth.
Oh, are there things that? Oh yeah, there are
There's
things that get
tactic
rid of stealth.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah,
They can't get rid of
yeah,
hers. Or storms.
that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's we're pretty down on Cassandra Nova, all things considered. Uh, okay. Do you have any comic book recommendations that have Cassandra Nova
I sure
that you want to talk
do.
about?
Before I do that, though, I just want to thank Jonathan for recommending Cassandra Nova. And last week's recommendation for an episode came from Ravensguard. So I just want to shout those people out.
Yeah, thanks guys. We appreciate you giving us recommendations. We will always need recommendations, especially when the news is pretty light. We try to stay on top of new characters when they come out, but sometimes in the year, like especially right now when they're trying to get another game going, there's just no new characters coming out. So we've got to talk about some of the older ones.
Yeah. And we've already done the ones for July. Like, we already got cards for them. We already did episodes for them. So the next ones are going to be for August. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It all depends on whether we find out what they are.
Yep. Okay, so I got 2 recommendations for Cassandra Nova. The first is New X-Men, the entire Grant Morrison run from 114 to 126. A lot of it's drawn by Frank Quitely, but not all of it. This is Cassandra Nova's first experience. First experience. What? I don't even know what word I was trying to do. Appearance.
Her
First
entrance into the
appearance.
meta.
No, first
The first
appearance.
appearance.
And she is the major bad guy throughout this entire run. And this is one of the best runs of X-Men ever. It's definitely a must-read for X-Men or Grant Morrison fans.
This is where she builds herself out of garbage. Is that correct?
Yeah, she is Charles Xavier's twin sister who he killed in the womb. Her psyche survived on the astral plane, and she built herself a body in the sewer with discarded biomatter in the sewer.
Yikes.
So
Yikes.
she's made of poop.
She's made of poop.
She's made of poop.
I feel personally triggered.
The very
with my
first
job.
thing she does is do in the comic is the biggest mutant genocide to ever happen.
She sounds really fun. She sounds
Sh-
like a real fun character.
She doesn't think anyone is real but her and Charles.
Of course. Healthy. Healthy relationship between these twins.
She also takes over his body. You've got to read this series. It's so good.
I think, have you brought this series up before?
Probably.
I think you have. I think this
Probably.
is the second time you've recommended it.
But there are 4 Cassandra Nova stories, really. And in one of them, she barely shows up. And then the other one is very new and iffy. Uh,
Okay.
so I only had so many things I could recommend for Cassandra Nova.
Yeah, she's a fringe character for being someone so, I guess, innately tied to Xavier.
Yeah. So the other story that I'm going to recommend is X-Men Red. This is by Tom Taylor and Mahmoud Asrar. Jean Grey is back from the dead, and she doesn't really like where the X-Men are at and what they're doing. So she goes off and makes her own X-Men team. And it's got Laura Kinney, Wolverine. It's got Honey Badger. It's got Nightcrawler and Storm. Um, there's a lot to like about her team. Anyway, Cassandra Nova is spreading hate for mutants all over the world and attacks the UN. Takes over Storm at one point. And Jean Grey and her team are trying to stop Cassandra Nova. Jean Grey does put a stop to Cassandra Nova in an interesting way, and I am 90% sure I recommended this already.
It's very possible. It's very possible.
I think on the Jean Grey episode, but once again, there are only so many Cassandra Nova stories. That's it.
Yes.
That's what you should
Okay.
read.
All right. So here's a question. Do you have a list where you would bring Cassandra Nova that does not include Sentinels or Cabal? Like an out of affiliation
Yes.
list?
In fact, there's a whole episode of what's Brandon's podcast called?
It is Well Laid Plans.
Well
Is
Laid
that
Plans. There's a
podcast.
whole episode of Well Laid Plans with me and Brandon talking about Hellfire Club, where she ends up in the list.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and I think if you take that list, I told Brandon after I played it a couple times, I want that list to have more rakes than it does. And you add some more rakes, and I think that list is really good.
So go listen to Well Laid Plans and see what that list is all about. It definitely features Cassandra Nova doing a lot of work. I remember that list.
Do you have a list that you would take her in that's not her affiliation?
You know, so the not really. If I'm to be honest, I'm not very good at this particular side of the game of like uh using abstraction to figure out how good something's going to work on the table. That's never been my strong suit. I'm a lot better at seeing how well things work in the moment. Uh, but if I had to, I don't know. Uh, Criminal Syndicate.
What
All
about
right.
A Force? So you give her the power she needs.
A Force would be pretty good. She would have more power. That would be much better. All right. Well, I guess that the only thing left is my non sequitur recommendation. So I see Cassandra Nova as being kind of like a more mystical existential threat. Uh, kind of
You're right.
almost, yeah, like she's this unfeeling, unthinking force of nature that's a threat to all mutants everywhere. And there are a series of tabletop it's not tabletop games, a series of role-playing games called Delta Green that
Of
I've been very
course.
interested in recently. And a big reason for that is that there's a podcast that I listen to. It's called the Glass Cannon Network podcast, and they have a subset where they're playing Delta Green. That subset is called Get in the Trunk, and it is exceptionally both well played, but also funny and hysterically well acted. It's very good. You should listen to the Get in the Trunk subset of the Glass Cannon Network. That is my recommendation. Uh, Part of Delta Green is its Cthulhuian horror. It's like Call of Cthulhu, but it's set in modern times. Well, sometimes modern, but anyway, go check out that podcast. It's great. And I guess that's it for today. It's a short one, y'all. It's a short one, mostly because it's just Brad and I who are out here.
Without Brandon, they are gonna be shorter. Brandon loves to talk.
Yeah, he's great at filling the space, which we love him for. Brandon, we miss you. Steven, we miss you too. All right, everyone. Hopefully we'll be all back together next week. We'll see y'all later.